What's up, everybody? It's Raptors postgame. I'm JD Bunkus. He's Donnovan Bennett.
I certainly am.
Now he has his mic on. He's Donnovan Bennett, so he can reassure you of this fact. Nicer to join you this evening. Last night, we all know. It's in the past. Barry last night. Big Raptors win tonight. Really important game. You had Boston right on your tail. They would have taken the tiebreaker from you. But the Raps take care of business. They take it. And why'd they take it? Depth. Depth and trusting each other. I just tweeted it out. But tonight was a nice reminder for me that of why the Raptors are here. DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry have had incredible seasons. DeRozan, for some stretches, has had an MVP caliber season. But it's a reminder that on any given night, the Raptors can find different guys that can pick them up and provide them with exactly what they need. And that's what happened tonight. After a slow first, the bench came in. DeLon Wright was incredible. Fred VanVleet was awesome. They got real contributions from the bench front court. But depth continues to be the Raptors' strong suit. And they're going to need that depth to contribute in the postseason. And if there's a night where Kyle Lowry's shot isn't falling, or there's a night that DeMar DeRozan's shot isn't falling, the thing that should be different from the past iterations of this Toronto Raptors team is that they have better equipped players to pick them up.
I think depth and defense, and I think the depth brings that elite defense. And there was a question on whether or not their defensive metrics, for most of the year, they're around 4 in defensive rating, was a bit of a paper champion because when you look at their defense against top 10 offenses, they dropped to 29th. I'm not sure this game is proof positive that their defense is elite because, let's be honest, the Celtics were on the second night of a road back-to-back. I know the Raptors are on a second night of a back-to-back, or if you're Kyle Lowry, back-to-back-to-back. But second night of a road back-to-back without Kyrie Irving, without Marcus Smart, without Shane Larkin, with Rozier getting his first real minutes on this trip. And so part of this game was the Celtics struggling to create offense. Basically, anyone other than Jason Tatum. But I do think that the calling card for this team, as much as we talked about culture reset, pace, space, three-point shots, man movement, body movement, can they get stops in the playoffs? They couldn't against Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't against Cleveland. They couldn't against Boston. In Toronto, they did. And their bench showed up big.
Yeah, the bench and the defense in particular in this one, it's tough to take it and be too serious about it because it was an awesome performance. And there was really great moments tonight from, I thought, DeLon Wright, especially on defense, just made a ton of plays with his length, forced some turnovers, got into a bunch of guys on switches. I will say this because, again, we want you to tweet in hashtag SNRaps, and you can get at Donnovan Bennett and I. But we had one tweet from Sonny, at Little Aristotle, Sonny K. He said, JD, great call on DeLon needing more minutes. He's been great. I was advocating a couple of weeks ago for DeLon Wright to get more minutes at the small forward, and he was awesome tonight. And I'm not going to take away from DeLon, and this show might as well be called the DeLon Wright Gush Fest because I've probably got 20 minutes worth of gushing about DeLon Wright material written down in my notes.
It might as well be called the JD patting himself on the back Gush Fest.
No, what I was going to say is that I think that as good as DeLon Wright was in this game and as solid as he was in that first half especially, and for a lot of moments in that second half, he switched out on a guys. You saw him get a few minutes on Marcus Morris or switch out on a Marcus Morris and not give him anything easy. You saw him play Terry Rozier, but you also saw him play Jaylen Brown, who's a 3, who can attack the basket, who's got some size and some physicality. And there were a few moments, especially later in that game, where Jaylen Brown was just able to kind of muscle his way down on DeLon Wright and use his size and strength to get to where he wanted in that game. And it was a little bit of a, yes, there are moments where I wouldn't mind 3-guard lineups and him playing the 3, the 3 spot for DeLon Wright, but it's tough to justify it over those extended minutes. I think he's a great guy that can switch out on players and he can give you a possession or two on somebody, But when a bigger player gets multiple looks, they can still out-physical him. But again, DeLon Wright was the story tonight in my eyes. He's the MVP of the game for the Toronto Raptors. Bench was great. Defense was great. But you mentioned the defense. They were coming in this game, their last 10-game sample size, the defensive rating was third last in the NBA. You're not taking anything away from the fact that Terry Rozier was banged up and that Kyrie Irving wasn't in this ball game, that Marcus Smart still not in this ball game, that Shane Larkin is missing from this ball game, and that the Celtics were basically playing with not a hobbled Terry Rozier. Like, he looked fine. He was up there grabbing rebounds. He had his moments, but he didn't look as effective as the last time the Raptors faced him, or the guy who's averaging 19 and 6 since he became a starter in absence of Kyrie.
Yeah. Listen, this was a scheduled loss for the Celtics, right? Anyone would tell you that they should have lost this game based off of the travel and the availability of their players. But the fact that the Raptors basically, for me, won the game in the second quarter, go on a 20-3 run, hold Boston to 14 points, which is tied for their lowest scoring in a quarter. And the thing that it's not just that they got stops, they got turnovers. That really fueled their offense, because it's not like the Raptors were painting a portrait offensively. They struggled at times to score
early. It was
the ball.
Dreadful.
But they got those 9 Celtics turnovers in the second quarter that led to 17 points, and then you started to see things open up in the second half after they saw the ball go in the basket. The big picture, that barring some sort of unforeseen cataclysmic disaster, they've now pretty much locked up the 1 seed. They're depending on what happens with Cleveland, they've got a tough game against Philly to come. They're likely going to skip LeBron James and the Cavs until the conference finals, assuming, because I'm not going to just assuming that they make it that far. The big picture thing for me is you're on a bit of a skid. We're 5-5 in the last 10. Worst record out of the top 5 teams in the East in that span. Things aren't going well for your team and your big stars. I think they needed this win more so. People talk about psyche and momentum and streaking. I think they needed this win more so to reassure that those 2 stars, who, let's be honest, all the pressure in the playoffs is on them, to say, listen, what we're doing is working. Don't overreact. Don't try and be heroes. Don't try and revert back to what we used to do, because in the month of November when they struggled, it's been talked about. Those guys said, especially Kyle, this isn't working. And the staff said, give it some time. And clearly over time, it's worked. I think this was important just so everyone can kind of take a step back and say, listen, it's not the system. It's the lack of execution within that system, which is why we were struggling.
Yeah, good defense tonight. Celtics also playing a back-to-back, a road back-to-back. A little bit different for them, but I got to give the Raptors credit because, again, a lot of the things that they did defensively, hard to take away from that. Hard to take away from what DeLon Wright did tonight. Even DeMar DeRozan, I thought that he actually set the tone early in that game because it wasn't DeMar's greatest game.
Nice block.
But, yeah, gets a block, gets a steal, pushes Al Horford into a tough possession, misses a fadeaway.
Some rebounds in traffic.
DeMar DeRozan also knocking down some threes for once in his life since the All-Star game. Guy's been ice cold, shooting 25% from deep since the All-Star game, but was, I think, 3 or 4 tonight. I want to get to a couple of these tweets. And again, we're going to get back to this again. It's going to be the DeLon Wright Gush Fest tonight because DeLon Wright was incredible. And it's tough to figure out what exactly everybody's role is going to be series to series. The Raptors' depth is part of having those 10 guys or even 11 guys, depending on how you feel about Lucas Nogueira's performance tonight, because I think he was a big part of why the Raptors were able to establish themselves in that second quarter.
Well, yeah, when you say 11 on this team, most people, the name that comes out is Norm Powell.
0 for 4 tonight, Norm.
I think that when we say 11 and we have that debate, I think the name that should come out is Bebe.
You feel for Bebe sometimes, right? Because
I feel for Bebe all the time.
He's clearly the third best center on the team, but he has utility, and you can really see how he helps the Raptors at times. And he comes in, and I saw Blake Murphy had a tweet earlier tonight of Twitter whenever Bebe comes in. I'm paraphrasing, but he said they always act surprised that he's playing well. It's like, nah, he's a pretty good player. And there is something to be said about a guy who can come in off the bench and provide you with, a good roller someone who still makes big mental mistakes, like when he's bodying Greg Monroe 20 feet from the basket and he blows by him for the dunk, gets the N1. But he also has that really good rim protection, alters shots, confuses people with his length. I think that he and DeLon Wright both have that same quality where no matter how long you watch film on those two guys, when you get up close and you're playing them, you're going to make at least one mistake a game, maybe two mistakes a game against those two just because you misunderstand or underestimate how long those two guys are.
Well, and with Bebe, and when we talk about the depth and the rotation on this team, is lumped in with Norm Powell's guys just outside that 10 who maybe could play but probably aren't going to in the playoffs. And I think we need to have a distinction between causation and correlation. Both of those guys are outside of the rotation. One of them just got a big deal, started the year starting, and lost that spot. The other
went from starting to bench to out of the rotation to maybe getting a shot at his spot again to back out of the rotation.
Bebe really has never had a long look at being part of the rotation. And when he's played in spot minutes here and there, he's played pretty well.
But be honest, though. Like, you don't think that Lucas Nogueira is better than Jakob Poeltl or Jonas Valanciunas?
There are things that Lucas Nogueira does better than Jakob Poeltl, absolutely.
But like what? Because Jakob Poeltl, his actual biggest strength is rim protection. He does a great job there. In fact, his contest percentage is right there with Lucas Nogueira. He blocks a ton of shots, and he doesn't. And now that he's cut down on the fouls, it's just really hard to make a case for Nogueira. They're both really good passers. I think Nogueira has a little bit better touch from outside, but
if you give me
Poeltl's stronger, and he's still the better rebounder.
If you give me Lucas Nogueira and a Kyle Lowry pick and roll, and Lucas Nogueira is diving to the basket, and if Lowry's floater is not an option with the big coming over, all he has to do is throw it to the top of the box.
Listen, I don't want to make this a disparaging Lucas Nogueira segment, but I don't think that there's really an argument that he's been better than Poeltl or he should be taking his minutes. Especially, you know what he can't do in the role is something that Jakob Poeltl did tonight, where you were almost ready to criticize him. I was watching the game with you, and you were like, "Come on, Poeltl!" As I think it was Lowry bounced it right into his knees. And Poeltl somehow scoops it up because he's got those nice hands, those nice, soft hands. He picks it up and lays it in the basket. Poeltl's he's a smart player. He's a good player. He's done nothing to lose his minutes. He has slowed down recently.
Well, I was going to say, post-All-Star break Poeltl and pre-All-Star break Poeltl are not the same Poeltl.
I wonder why that is, though, because as I was looking at his numbers and I was kind of taking a peek at that, I expected them to be a little bit more jarring, but nah, not really. Oh, they're pretty much right in step. His shooting numbers are a little bit lower. He hasn't been as efficient, but ultimately, like, he's still getting the same amount of rebounds. He's still getting the same amount of assists. Defensive rating has fallen off a bit, but that's going to be the case when, again, you're a Raptors team that's sunk from being, third in defensive rating throughout the season to over the last 10 games being the 10th worst. So ultimately, I think that the Raptors, their glut at center is a real positive for them, but it's always nice knowing that Lucas Nogueira is another one of those guys who, if you do need him, if someone gets in foul trouble, if Jonas Valanciunas gets in foul trouble, if you do play a Boston Celtics team that likes to go big and you need a bunch of different looks at center, that Lucas Nogueira is going to be able to step in for you, and you can trust him with those minutes, and that you're not going to feel like an idiot doing it, because ultimately he's still a brain cramp player. He still makes those mistakes. Like I mentioned, the Greg Monroe, like going out and defending him at the three-point line, when it's fine if Greg Monroe goes and shoots the three. It's fine if you don't just take those bad screening fouls that Lucas Nogueira has taken in the past, or forgetting to box out and trusting his length. Like, he's made those errors, but I feel like he's cleaning them up, and maybe it's just because we're not seeing him in extended minutes, like you said. But ultimately, the role that he's in right now, find me a better third center in the NBA than Lucas Nogueira. It's not going to happen for you. Wanted to get to a couple of tweets. I want to talk about Serge Ibaka, because I saw this one come in, and it reminded me that he was kind of the dude that fell a little bit under the radar tonight. So Drew Niebel, I'm going to say, the Niebler, tweets in, Ibaka's best performance. Satisfied with that effort in the playoffs. Yeah, absolutely. Serge Ibaka has taken a lot of crap from me. A lot of crap from me. And I think fairly deservedly so, because he's slowed down on defense. He's nothing like the guy that we remember from the Oklahoma City Thunder. The five that could defend anybody, that was the best shot blocker in the NBA for a stretch. He's still a good defensive player. had a really beautiful block again at the beginning of the game on Aaron Baines, where the 7-footer, the guy with big size on him, tried to go up over Serge and bang, met him right there at the rim and drops the thumbs down. Still has that in him to some degree, but he's not out there defending smaller players. The three-point shooting has been abysmal. Again, his field goal shooting over in general was dreadful. But since they turned the calendar, all of a sudden Serge Ibaka has been better. And if I just go pull up the game log, just from a statistical standpoint in terms of what he's been able to do, this is now 3 straight games where he's had 15 or more. He had 13 against Denver even in the shooting. Like, he knocked down 3 of 3 against the Celtics in the last meeting from deep, 2 of 5 in the game against the Cavs, and 1 of 4 tonight. But the field goal shooting in general, 7 of 13 tonight against the Celtics, 6 of 14 against the Cavs, and 5 of 7 the last time out. And this is all with a little bit more attention to detail on the defensive end, and it's with some better rebounding. He's cracked double digits in rebounding in 2 of those games. He's playing more minutes, and he's rewarding Dwayne Casey for doing it. If you're going to get this Serge Ibaka, and the rest of the dominoes can fall into place, and by that I mean getting more of the first half of the season DeMar DeRozan, the leading into the All-Star break DeMar DeRozan, and the Kyle Lowry from last month, who was, as you said, hunting his shot from everywhere and knocking it down from everywhere, and that depth, that's why we were hyping up the Raptors. That's why we were talking about this Raptors team having the ceiling of going to a finals, and all of a sudden talking about, well, what if the Warriors didn't get in? What if the Rockets did knock them off? Could they win? Could it happen? That's why we talk about this team that way. But Serge Ibaka has been a revelation the last 3 games. I don't know what he's been doing differently, but this was on a back-to-back. This was back-to-back Serge Ibaka, and he was great.
Yeah, on a back-to-back, gave you 29 minutes. A lot of those minutes at the 5, as JV didn't see many second half minutes at the 5, was a plus 14. The only center was better than that was Bebe, plus 19.
Bebe was great tonight.
He was. Serge took 4 3-pointers. He hit 1. Like, from most players, most positions, that's not a good look. But again, in this starting unit, when, granted, DeMar hit more than 1 tonight, but in a starting unit where most guys aren't prolific 3-point shooters, I don't have an issue with Serge taking them
when he's
open, and when the ball has swung from side to side, and it's come to him on the weak side, where JV is in position for a rebound. But early in the shot clock, it's not a good look. And I think his threes and a lot of the Raptors' misses early were good shots. They just were shots that didn't fall.
You know what's funny with Serge, too? He had a really great moment in this game where, because people do respect the 3-point shot, when he's wide open, they will run out him on a close. And he throws the pump fake. And instead of dribbling into the lane, and again, Serge had some good moments where he was in the lane tonight. He recognized smaller defenders and got close to the basket and finished around there with a couple of floaters, with a couple of finger rolls. But my favorite Serge moment, and I'm not a proponent of the long twos either, but the long two is not something that's just completely gone from the NBA. Like, it still has, again, a utility. And what Serge Ibaka did tonight was pump fake and then take 2 dribbles in, step into a shot for that long two, knock it down. I really like that. But when Serge is playing smart, you just see so much of his game fall into place. You're right. It's those early in the shot clock blunders. It's him dribbling into traffic and not realizing that his handle isn't that great, or trying to shoot it over a contested player with a floater, and you say, that's not your shot. That's not what you do. That's not your role on offense. But tonight, hanging around the basket, cleaning up some rebounds, knocking down that 3, stepping in when he gets challenged, and finding different ways to contribute. I thought Serge was awesome tonight. And I think that's a really good tweet and really astute one, because, again, when we're talking about the bench and DeLon Wright gets excitement and Lucas Nogueira draws excitement, and seeing Fred VanVleet again play extremely well brings excitement, it was nice to remember that Serge Ibaka was an anchor in this game.
You mentioned the 3-point shots and him kind of being run off the line. And the best 3-point defense is not contest. The best 3-point defense is deterrence, is running people off of the line. And this is the 6th straight year in the NBA that the amount of 3-pointers taken and made has increased. We talk about the Raptors, emphasizing the 3-ball. Thank you. They've been late to the party. Like, we were talking about this with the 7 seconds or less Suns. In that 6-year span, the amount of threes has gone up 37%. So like in anything in economics, it's supply and demand. And when everyone is doing something, the best thing to do at times is not to necessarily be late to the party, but to revert. And the Warriors, who started their winning phase as a team that was killing you from three, now when you look at them, they have three guys who are really good three-point shooters. That happens to be their stars, Curry, Clay, and KD, but they're not a great three-point shooting team. But they kill you in the mid-range because teams are giving up the mid-range. Everything's reverted. Historically, long twos were bad, but open twos are good. And so you're right. When Serge takes a step in and either forces the defense to rotate and makes a safe pass or steps in and takes an 18-footer, that's a smarter play than shooting 22-footer with someone running at him. This game is interesting for me because we saw a lot of different lineup combinations throughout to kind of bring home the victory because Norm played significant minutes. Bebe played significant minutes. And I wonder and interested to hear what the viewers, listeners think. Hashtag SNRaps, 1-888-666-0590, star 590. Give us a call if it's good. You got to know going into the playoffs who your best five is. Who your best five is to get a stop, who your best five is to get a score. In all situations, up 4, down 3, tied, who your best five is. And I honestly think still, even though we've watched almost 82 games of this team, if you ask the average Raptors fan that's watched every game on Sportsnet 1, who their best five is, and let's say a tie game, because it's going to vary whether it's an offense-defense situation, I think you could ask 15 Raptors fans, you could get 15 different answers. I honestly believe that. Like, who are your, right now, crunch time five guys you want to see in a big spot?
To me, this is a huge problem. You know why? Because I keep hearing Alvin Williams' voice in my head, who I talked to earlier in the season, and he kept hammering home to me that this mattered. And I kept pushing back and saying, no, why does it matter if you can just kind of find five guys? If you have enough depth, and it's working. The Raptors, it keeps working. But I really think that there's a difference between those regular season games where you're playing the Detroit Pistons or you're running out the Atlanta Hawks and you're not getting those reps. And I think that when we were looking at those Raptors crunch time statistics earlier in the year when they weren't a very good crunch time lineup, that maybe has something to do with it. You mocked me. And some of the listeners on Free Association, again, we're going to do a Free Association podcast over this too. Some people mock me because I said I wanted the Raptors to play in some closer games because I wanted them to find out definitively kind of who those guys are. And this is what concerns me about the crunch time lineup. I think that Fred VanVleet is super, super, super important. And I find myself when he's not on the floor thinking, I wish Fred was out here.
I feel a butt coming on.
But he's got his limitations as well. If you're playing Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry, that means you're playing two guys who are 6 feet tall in your crunch time lineup. And how many guys is that not a problem against? It also means that you're playing DeMar DeRozan, who is not exactly the best defensive guard. So you've still got a couple of guys who are plus defenders at their position, but ultimately limited by their size. I really trust Fred to make an open shot, but you're automatically going small, which means that you don't have that wing.
What you mean if Fred's playing, you're going small?
Yeah. That's So what I'm saying is I like Fred in that spot. I feel like he plays the same way in the first minute that he comes in the ball game as when the Raptors are playing massive minutes. And again, when he's out of the game, I feel like you're missing his floor spacing, you're missing his ball handling, you're missing his defense. I really like DeLon Wright. But so far, on the whole body of work of the season, Fred VanVleet has done more to gain my trust late in ball games. You need your two guys, DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, out there. Serge Ibaka is certainly out there. I think he's at the 5. The question is, like, really, who's that fifth guy to me? And what do you have to do with it? Because to me, it's like you pretty much have to bring in size. It feels like it could be Pascal Siakam, but then that's another guy out there that you don't trust from deep with Kyle Lowry. Like, there's all these questions that go into it. Like, that's my crunch time 5. That's the group that I feel most comfortable with in most situations that gives you the best defensive and offensive mix.
So,
but it's not set. But it's not set.
Go through it again, 1 through 5, because you kind of talked in and out of a lot of guys. So
my 5 is Ibaka. My 4 is Pascal. My 3 is DeMar, and my 1 and 2 are Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet. But again, I'm not I'm not confident that that's a thing that you should be going to every single night. Like, I do still believe that there's going to be nights where you're going to have CJ Miles in there, and you're going to have to have DeLon Wright in there. If it was tonight, if the Raptors were playing the Celtics tonight, and it was a close ball game, and you had to pick 5 guys, you're going to tell me that DeLon Wright's sitting? No chance. And I think at some point that's a bit of a problem, that you don't have that one unit that has all those reps together and knows this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to play together. These are the experiences we have to rely on. I think it matters because guys like Alvin Williams have told me that matters.
Well, I mean, you could have that 5 if you wanted to. You could be stubborn and say, listen, I'm going to have amnesia. I don't care what happened early in the ball game. These are the guys who are finishing the game. End of story. The Hampton 5 for the Warriors, barring foul trouble or injury, is going to close 95% of close playoff games for the Warriors. We know this to be self-evident and a fact. And it doesn't matter if Andre Iguodala has missed 15 three-point shots or he's made 15. He's going to be in that lineup. And surprisingly, our starting 5s are very similar. I actually build them the opposite
Closing
way.
5s?
Sorry, yes, thank you. Our closing 5s in crunch time. I build it actually out the opposite way. Fred is my 1. I mean, Kyle is in this role playing the 2, giving you 3-point shooting, giving you dogged defense, and most importantly for me, taking care of the basketball, valuing possessions at the end of games. DeMar DeRozan is the 3, and it's a whole heap of issues as far as defense is concerned. But I need a break glass, get me a bucket person in late game scenarios. DeMar is that guy. And the real questions, I think, are now, how do you fill out the front court? And I think that's where there would be a lot of variance. Because I think a lot of Raptors fans would say Jakob Poeltl should be in that conversation.
A lot of fans say Jonas Valanciunas still.
This guy's one of them. Because for me, it would be...
You're one of the captains of JV Hive.
It would be Pascal Siakam, and it would be Jonas Valanciunas.
So Serge Ibaka's not on the floor?
No. I think Pascal, his ability...
You got 3 guys who can't shoot threes in your closing lineup.
Well, JV can shoot threes.
Says what? You're going to trust JV? You're down 2 points, and JV gets the ball kicked out to him. 3-point line. He's standing there. He does his thing. His dead straight 3-point shot.
Do the math. Out of the 10 guys that they play, only 4 of them can hit threes. So pretty much I've kept the ratio the same.
Nah,
what do you mean? CJ Miles and maybe Serge sometimes.
CJ Miles doesn't hit threes. He was 1 for 5 again tonight. The dude does not hit threes.
So basically I'm playing 2 out of the 3 guys.
CJ Miles.
Who are these 3-point shooters that I don't know about who are on the team that I'm neglecting?
Serge Ibaka is a guy who at least has gravity out to the 3-point line.
Right. He would be the one guy. But I also value, again, end of game, and we're assuming it's a tie game. To get a stop, you need to secure the ball. You need a defensive rebound. I love
Serge Ibaka, who's had double-digit rebounds in 2 of his last 3 games.
JV wakes up out of bed and has double-digit rebounds. Like we both know, and I've said
he's a much better rebounder.
I've said in Serge's defense that a lot of it is the areas with which he's on the floor. But still, if I need a board to end a ball game, JV is the guy. That unit is great foul shooting, take care of the ball, can get me rebounds, and my backcourt is going to have to be the guy shooting threes.
Here's the thing. I don't hate that. I just think, again, it's matchup dependent. It all depends on who you're playing, and this goes back to what I think is still a problem. And this is why, to me, this is kind of why Dwayne Casey, while he's not going to win Coach of the Year, like let's just say it, he's not going to this stretch of games.
I disagree.
Would you like to put a wager on it? You think Casey's got it? I'll give you odds even.
So wait, are we going Casey versus Stevens or Casey versus the field?
I get the field.
No, I was saying Casey versus Stevens.
I think Stevens is probably going to win, but I think that there's an outside chance that it could be a Snyder.
I'll take Casey, you take Stevens, and if it's the field, it's a wash.
So, but you'll do that even then.
Casey and Stevens?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sweet. All right, we'll settle on that later.
Easy money.
Thank you for that. Here's the case for Casey, is that while expectations were a lot higher than some people are making them out to seem, I read your article today, and I agreed with some of the things in it. But what I don't agree with is that the Raptors did more with the lowest expectations, because that all changed once the Celtics lost Gordon Hayward. That all changed when the Celtics lost Kyrie Irving for a large portion of the season. what the Boston Celtics have been able to do, especially down the stretch here, and playing a bunch of guys that no one thought was going to be contributing like this at the end of the season, is remarkable. That they finished second in the Eastern Conference, or that they still have a chance at getting first in the Eastern Conference, and that they're this close without two of their best three players is just, it's completely undeniable. But Casey's case to me centers around kind of that crunch time. What we were talking about with crunch time is that the Raptors don't have this one unit. There's still that missing piece, and that missing piece continues to be the wing player. That they thought they were going to get this elite three-point shooter in CJ Miles. They can't even rely on that when it comes to him, and he's not he's far from a defensive dynamo. OG Anunoby, while we've seen great stretches, he's your classic rookie season where the dude plays great out of the gate and smashes into that rookie wall and then is contributing to you to some degree later in the season. They don't have that wing player. They don't have that set five. But what Dwayne Casey has done is he has a master stroke ability to figure out what lineup should be and when he should employ them. He's great at pulling the right string at the right time with this roster. Like, I don't think that there's a coach that could all of a sudden step in and do more. Yes, the cultural reset has been a thing. Yes, getting DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry to buy into it has been a massive thing. But he's also been afforded an incredible bench that really helps you carry through the regular season.
He's been afforded an incredible bench?
Well,
or
he's helped develop it. He's helped cultivate it.
Half of his bench was playing last year in the G League Championship.
Again, so then give Jerry Stackhouse the title. Give him Coach of the Year.
I believe he won G League Coach of the Year.
SL16 tweets in, winning late five, Wright, Lowry, DeRozan, Ibaka, JV. Losing late, Lowry, Freddie, DeRozan, Siakam, JV. So again, like, there's no set thing. Again, you can tweet in hashtag SNRaps. You can tweet at me, JD Bunkus, at Donnovan Bennett. I've got a couple of other ones here. Again, I thought these are some really astute tweets. This is that Paul Bromby, who works here, bomber, former CIS player. Baby in the bench changed the game. Played D and got the ball to the rim. Ugly, but exactly what a playoff game would be like. It's true. That's what it's going to be. The Raptors, as much as I do believe in the cultural reset, if part of it is moving the ball and trusting each other and getting contributions from other people and not relying on just DeRozan and Lowry ISO plays, I still think that they're a better team right now when they slow it down a little bit. And I know that the Celtics wanted them to do that, and that was the style of play that they wanted to invoke in this game. Celtics sometimes going with three different big guys. But the Raptors trying to run up and down the floor with Cleveland, I just don't think it's going to work. And what you saw tonight was a better reflection of how the Raptors can win. Depth, shooting, contributions from your stars, but also playing high-level defense and getting real contributions from, again, guys like DeLon Wright and Lucas Nogueira popping in. I'm happy with the effort we saw from the Raps. Hashtag SNRaps from Azon798. Our friend Brendan Delaney. Home makes a huge difference, and this game proved it. Lately, they've had a hard time closing games. I didn't see that tonight. Also, it sucks. Like, all of the terribleness Ibaka had has now transferred to CJ. Hashtag SNRaps. It's true. It's true. I don't know what is going on with CJ Miles right now, but he has not been a contributor as of late. Again, he went 0 for 5 the last time they faced the Celtics, and 0 for 5 from 3, 0 for 6 from the floor. Had a bunch of turnovers, wasn't contributing in any facet of the game. In my opinion, they had no chance in that game the way that CJ Miles just completely sewered them. Tonight, again, the bench played great. The bench had good moments. Everyone on the bench found a way to contribute. The one guy who didn't was CJ Miles. He almost had that flush. He almost had that massive cramp. Had he had that, that's all we're talking about. We can't disparage CJ Miles if he throws down that dunk, but he missed it. And now we're looking at his numbers and saying, oh, right, CJ Miles, what'd you shoot tonight? 1 of 4 from 3, 2 of 5 last night or against the Cavs. Like,
he should have went to the line for 2. Got hit in the head on that dunk attempt as well. There's a couple of vicious, just missed dunk attempts in this game going both ways. The interesting thing about the Celtics and their road record, which you mentioned, I think is key, because as I look at the lay of the land in the East, and again, winning this seed, I think this had a playoff game atmosphere, because I think this impacts not only playoff seeding, but I think it will impact the bracket and how far this Raptors team can realistically go. You had the best team, in my opinion, road team in the league, and the Celtics playing the best home team in the league in the Raptors. And I honestly think that this could be an Eastern Conference Finals matchup, because I think that the team who has the best chance to beat the Cavs, to go into Cleveland and steal a game, might be the Celtics in the way they match up.
I don't know.
Who on the
Sixers.
Cleveland Cavaliers is assuming he's healthy by then, is guarding Kyrie Irving for 7 games? LeBron James, maybe. That's it.
Paul Jones is on the line. He joins us now. Raptors analyst. Hey, Jonesy, how's it going, man?
Good, guys. Good.
So, feeling better today? Everybody's relaxing just a touch? Or
Jones
how
is
much,
always feeling good.
How much are we reading into this game?
I just think the Raptor fans get so, 2 wins in a row and, let's plan the parade route, 2 losses in a row, trade the world, fire everybody. One of the best lines I heard last year in the 2 years ago in the playoffs when they lost Game 4 to Indiana and were beaten badly, I think it was Doug Smith or the Toronto Star that said it. Raptors trail series 2-2. It's a long season. It's a grind. I mean, they've had a lull now. They had lost 5 of 8 coming into tonight, but they've lost to good teams. And if they have this in February, everybody kind of says, oh, well, but it's just the timing of it. And I think they've done a nice job of kind of putting it back on track tonight. And the one thing that I've noticed over the last 3 games is how hard they've played. Not necessarily well, but how hard they've played. Rotations were bad. Turnovers were bad. Execution not great. But that was not from, lack of effort. And that's the one thing that I've noticed over the last little while. They have been playing harder.
But, Jones, you would admit that timing does matter and that a lot of the things that we saw in that consecutive game against the Cavaliers were concerning, no?
Yeah, but look, they lose the game in Boston, I would say uncharacteristically.
Yeah.
Boston's 9 of 21 in the fourth quarter. Toronto's 7 of 21. 9 of 21 is not lighting the world on fire. But when you turn the ball over 7 times and give up 11 points in a quarter, considering you only had 8 turnovers in the first 3 quarters, and you're one of the top 10 teams in the league in only allowing 15 points a game off turnovers, and you give them 11 in the fourth quarter, I'd say that's out of character. So, you look at what's self-inflicted and what you can change. And tonight, they hold the Celtics. The Raptors are now, since 13-14, their first playoff season, they're 74-4 when they hold teams under 90 points and 59-5 when they hold them under 40%. Both of those tonight. So, it's the game, winning in misery. The relief never lasts as long when you win, and the misery never ends when you lose.
Jonesy, we were talking about this group and who's going to close games for them in the playoffs. And I think this entire year, for the most part, is research and development for Dwayne Casey to see what lineup combinations work and which don't. And if you look at the elite teams around the league, for the most part, who those guys are going to be on the court at the end of the game, down 2, up 2, tie game. For you, if you are patrolling the sidelines, who are the 5 you feel the most comfortable with at the end of a ball game?
Well, the way the bench has played this year and the fluidity of the lineup and the weapons you have to create matchups on your end and counter matchups on the other end, you have your all-stars out there, Lowry and DeRozan, and then it's fluid. The next 3 guys, it just depends. We've seen the 2 guards, Van Vliet and Wright, on the floor with Siakam. We've seen Miles on the floor at times. Van Vliet and DeLon Wright are in the top 25 in fourth quarter minutes in the entire NBA. So they're pretty much 2 of the guys that you're going to see on the floor with Lowry. And then you look at DeRozan, and then what do you need? How is the other team playing? So, Donnovan, to your question, I think as much as you can't say, here's the 5-man unit I want, you can look at the other side and say, I've got 8 or 9 guys that I could play in a 5-man unit and run them in and out depending on matchups. I could have 5 on at the start of the fourth quarter, a different 5 or same 2 all-stars and a different 3 in the middle of the quarter. I mean, Lucas Nogueira comes in tonight, and he's fantastic. The guy's the 11th man, So I just think you have to play it by feel, Donnovan. You just got to understand what the matchup is and look at where your best, counter is and play it that way.
Yeah, I think that's Casey's strongest chip for the Coach of the Year candidacy, is that it seems like he's been able to figure out what that lineup should be just about every single night. And I don't know if it's a strength to have that. I don't know if it's a detriment. I've heard both sides. Some people saying that it's nicer to have that crunch time five that you always know you can rely upon, or sometimes it's better to have that depth. But either way, Casey's made it work. I want to ask you about CJ Miles, because Dwayne was throwing Norm Powell in there early, gave him some minutes. Norm didn't really do too much, but I looked at CJ Miles' last 5 games from 3. He's 7 of 32, and I wonder if those minutes that Norm Powell got tonight against a big match in a big game against the Boston Celtics showed you any indication that maybe they are losing a little bit of faith in CJ, and that maybe that he could start losing some more minutes.
No, I don't think they are. I just, he's going through a little bit of a tough time right now, and Dwayne Casey's loyalty is to winning, and CJ's a veteran that's not going to lose confidence. I mean, he's a shooter. The shooter's credo: make till you miss till you make. And I mean, he's not turning shots down. And I mean, Dwayne Casey's winning loyalty is to winning. Who's going to help him win? What does he need? Let's give Norm a shot. And that's the kind of the feel I spoke about earlier. So I don't think they're losing confidence in him at all, JD.
Lastly, before we let you go, Canadian Kelly Olynyk just lit it up for the Heat tonight. They move up to 6 with 3 games left. Miami, Washington, Milwaukee, all jockeying for position, and Raptors fans continue to refresh Sportsnet.ca to see who they're going to be faced. Do you care? Is there any matchup in those 3 that you like or that you're scared of? I know you want to go home and see the brother, but do you care other than that?
Well, no, that would be my matchup for selfish reasons. But
South Beach.
Look, I think Milwaukee's conditioned to play against Toronto. I don't know if they can beat Toronto, but the way they played them last year in the playoffs and this year in the regular season with tough, close games, they probably feel they can beat Toronto. Whether they can or not is a different story. Washington was the last team to make life really miserable for Toronto in the playoffs with that sweep a couple of seasons ago. And then Miami is going to grind you. Dwayne Wade's not the Dwayne Wade that he used to be, but they play really hard. So if you're the Raptors as a number 1 seed, you have to say, doesn't matter who's down there, we're beating you anyway, so bring it on. So, I mean, I think each team presents its own issue, Donnovan, but you know what? At this point, you've won 56 games and the meter's still going. I know the playoffs are a different story, but you have to look and say, who's up next? That's all you have to do. Your attitude has to be, we fear no one, bring it on.
Hey, Paul, always appreciate you making time for us, man. Thanks for doing it tonight.
Okay. All right, fellas. Take care.
Cheers. Paul Jones, Raptors analyst.
He's a better man than I, because all 3 of those teams terrify me. And for a while, I was saying, please be Miami, bring on Miami. But the more you look at that team, they're a light version of the Raptors. They got Whiteside, who, when he's not calling out his entire organization, is a real big who makes life difficult for you on
Except
both
for
ends.
He is calling out his organization.
Sure.
And that's a problem.
No question. But he still is a problem. And then they could just beat you to death with him and Bam. But then they could play finesse with Olynyk, who's hitting step back threes and he's playing center. And you've got Justice Winslow, who's from Duke, so he never really is going to
do anything
his full potential, but still is kind of tricky. Wade is going to get star calls in the playoffs. Dragic
That's not my Wade concern. My Wade concern is the same one that Bill Simmons tweeted out the other night. Like, I don't want to see Dwayne Wade jumping under someone's leg or cocking somebody with an elbow right to the face. Yeah, I don't think I'm that scared of any opponent.
There's the James Johnson narrative.
I don't feel that way anymore. I used to be a little concerned.
About any of them or about the Heat?
No, I would say if I had to rank them, Washington would be the one I don't want in the first round. They've had some real ghosts with Washington, and I think that, again, if you're looking at rotations tightening up and who's got the best 5, the best 6, it's Washington by a mile. I don't want to have to deal with Bradley Beal. I don't want to have to deal with Otto Porter on DeMar DeRozan again. I don't want anything to do with that. If it's Miami, you better roll Miami and put toe tags on all those guys you just mentioned in 6 games. If it's the Bucks, The Bucks are maybe the most poorly coached team in the history of basketball. Like the talent that they have and the two coaches that they've had this season. I can't fear the Bucks when they played the Celtics last night with no Terry Rozier and in a must-win game scraped out a 3-point victory. We're sitting here watching Celtics play a bunch of bums and they can't figure out what to do. Giannis scares me.
Hey, dog. Anyone on the Raptors have a 60 Minutes feature?
Yeah, you're right. What was it even about? Ice cream? I have no idea what it was about. Who cares? I can't be worried.
You want
about
to play
a Bucks
Giannis
team.
for 2 weeks? Do you want to play Giannis for 2 weeks?
Here's the thing. I don't want the Raptors to play anybody. I just want them to be in the finals. Like, that's what I want. That's my ideal world. We don't have to come in here every single night and grind away and be here. We can go see our families and our friends, and they just show up in the finals. Yeah, give me that tomorrow. But they're going to have to play somebody tough. There's no layups in the Eastern Conference this year. There's no easy out. There's no easy opponent. They're going to get the Pacers on Friday. That's probably the team I would choose if I could have any one of them. But
yeah, I actually agree.
Yeah.
Like, we need to institute
the pick
your team. So Dwayne Casey can step up to the podium and say, no disrespect, Nate McMillan, but I want your Pacers.
FR09 tweets in, are the Raptors a different team when there's less transition play in games like the last few? I feel like Siakam's game is limited if he's not on the break 3-4 times a game. Hashtag SNRaps. I think that Siakam, his greatest attribute still is his ability to defend multiple positions out to the perimeter. Because, again, you've seen, though, how important that is. He's a really good passer who's a very smart basketball player. I don't think he's limited when he doesn't have his transition game. It's just that his transition game is something that you really notice because, again, he's lightning fast and you can throw him a basket and he's going to finish at the rim. The second part of this is less transition. I felt like there was way too much transition against the Cavaliers in that last game. And that's actually one thing that scares me when you get into that three-point battle with Cleveland, is that all of a sudden you're in a spot where when you miss, LeBron James collects that basketball and rips down the floor, and we know how good he is at finding those shooters, and the Raptors haven't done a very good job against them at covering up those spots. So, no, in my opinion, the less transition defensively you can play, the better. And, yes, of course, the more you can get Siakam out in transition, the better.
I don't agree that there was too much transition. I mean, that's like saying I was driving in the diamond lane for too long. Like, transition is always good. Easy baskets and up-tempo offense is always good. I will say, though, that if you're expecting Pascal Siakam to eat off of transition buckets, just outworking and outrunning people for 16 wins in the playoffs, you better think again. Because in the playoffs, when everyone is paying attention to the scouting report, people aren't crashing the boards the way they normally would.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting back. They're having a safety. They're trying to play smart defense, which is taking away early offense and transition opportunities. So I don't think he's going to get the 4, 5, 6, 7 points he gets a night just by being faster than people, because I think there's going to be people waiting for him in the paint.
I love watching Pascal Siakam run the floor, though. There's nothing.
You love watching Pascal Siakam do anything.
Yeah, I really do, but that's my favorite thing, no question about it. Jay Narco, at Jay Narco, tweets in, your thoughts on Lowry's on-ball defense. Apart from taking charges, is Lowry a better defender, especially on ball, fighting through screens, than Fred VanVleet? Lowry's cheating is being exposed, I think.
Right.
Toss up.
You can't really say despite taking charges, because that's a big part of his defense.
It is a big part of his defense. He's a better help defender. He is, because he jumps in and he finds ways to take those charges.
But he's also done it for long enough that he gets calls that he probably doesn't deserve.
He's also a guy that if you're like Donnovan and you're a fraidy cat to put in a smaller lineup because you're scared of getting rebounds, then one guy is clearly the better rebounder. Kyle Lowry's having his best rebounding season of his career, and he's among the best rebounding point guards in the NBA. If you took out the combo guards like Russell Westbrook, maybe there's a case he's the best. But, yeah, I think Lowry is still the better defender. Fred is very good, though. Like, Fred does incredible work for a smaller guy. But I still think because Lowry is stronger, and he's got that butt as an anchor where he can sometimes stop bigger guys, that gives him the edge against Fred VanVleet, who, when people take it inside on him, it's a little bit of a mismatch.
Lowry once a night, though, will have a remarkably frustrating foul.
Oh, yeah. He's going to do multiple frustrating things. Bluefish, at Bluefish405. Does OG start in the playoffs? Yeah, absolutely. I don't really see a scenario where he doesn't, barring an injury at this point. I've said multiple times I wouldn't mind giving DeLon Wright a look in some matchups. To me, I don't care if you mess with the starting lineup matchup based. Like, I don't see how it's any different than switching up the crunch time 5. If you're like Paul Jones believes that it's fluid. And frankly, like I believe it's going to be fluid. I don't see why your starting unit couldn't be fluid. Dwayne Casey in the past hates doing that. We've seen over and over and over again, Casey loves having his set bench. And even if Luis Scola is on a ventilator and hooked up to an IV and can't defend anybody and can't hit a shot, he's going to keep starting him until he's blue in the face.
But in the playoffs, he did finally revert.
But I don't think starting the playoffs, like, does OG start in the playoffs? I think yes. If, like, the question is, does he start at all? Absolutely. Does he start the majority of the games for the Raptors? I still think absolutely. Does he maybe come out for a game? Maybe. But again, like, who's the guy that comes in? The 3-point shooter who only does that, who I mentioned over his last 5 games, is 7 to 32.
I think Pascal Siakam would be the guy. I know you don't like to play him at the 3,
Yeah, I don't.
especially for extended minutes, but I think
don't.
he would be the guy. I don't think it's a conversation. I think Dwayne Casey is going to take the Luis Scola stance. Would I be surprised if I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see the starting lineups brought to you by whoever it's brought to you by, and the Raptors are down 2 games in a series, it's an elimination game, and all of a sudden, beside SF, someone else's name, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Norm Powell start a big playoff game. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Pascal Siakam start a big playoff game. I wouldn't be surprised if J.D. Bunkus becomes an apprentice on the Raptors coaching staff and you saw DeLon Wright.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
No, you're not.
I'm so ready. No, the Raptors have a great coaching staff. I would love to
I wouldn't
sit.
be if push comes to shove and you're down in a series and you basically say as a staff, listen, we could be stubborn until we're blue in the face, but we can't start another game -5 at the first TV timeout. We just can't. I could see at that point OG coming out of the starting lineup and just coming out of the rotation.
But do you think he'd be the reason? Like, he would be the main problem, the real adjustment you need to make? Because again,
I don't think you're definitely not changing any of those other 3 and probably not 4.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think this is my tweet? #SNRaps.
Okay.
At JD Bunkus writes in, at Donnovan Bennett. Are you starting to be a little bit more concerned about how the Toronto Raptors were unable to procure a wing in the buyout market, considering the recent play from CJ Miles and Norman Powell?
No.
Wow, I would expect that with that type of a tweet that I put that much effort into, I would get a little bit better of a response than no.
Wow, you're lucky I didn't block you.
That's true.
No, not. I'll probably just mute you because you would take being blocked
big mute guy.
personal. And you'd hunt me down.
Who wouldn't? Who doesn't take getting blocked personal?
I don't even know if I've been blocked. I mean, I highly doubt it because I don't abuse people on social
Neither
media.
do
I also don't have the care effort to block people. Like, I've never blocked someone.
Yeah.
You'd say something terrible. I'll just
I
keep
will
scrolling.
throw a block down on you like
Okay.
you will not believe.
2
I've
thumbs
rained the
down?
blocks down from the heavens. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm like
Ibaka.
Serge Ibaka when he was sub 30 years old. Like, that's what I'm doing. I don't know. I look at the Sixers and I see how Bellinelli has been for them, and I do wonder. It would be nice to have a Bellinelli on this team.
You'd also have to assume that they'd want to come to Toronto.
No, that's the biggest thing, and I don't think that they missed out terribly on a guy like Aaron Aflalo, but it does kind of stink that like Paul was saying, CJ Miles is a shooter. You got to shoot, make until you miss until you make. The thing is there's just way too many misses lately. Like, go scroll through, like CJ Miles, I said, shooting 31% now since the All-Star break from 3. There's a point where we need to see a few makes, CJ Miles, like a few of them, not just one a game. Like,
see, it's interesting. The guy who went to the Sixers late that I'd be interested in is Ilyasova.
More than Bellinelli?
Yeah. Because we started this by saying part of the identity of this team is defense. Belly is not. I mean, Raptors fans know.
No.
He's here. He's not helping you get stops.
My point was more so that, and yes, it's
not that CJ is, but
yeah, my point here is more so that you're stuck with CJ Miles in a way that no matter how poor he's shooting, you kind of have to run him out there again because A, you don't have depth on the wing, and B, you just don't have another guy who has his gravity. Like, as long as he's out there, defenses have to respect him. They have to make sure they're conscious of where he is running off of a screen.
Alfonzo McKinnie, come on down.
Yeah,
you're the next contestant.
I don't think they're cracking
Raptors
the
need a
glass
3
for Alfonzo McKinnie in the postseason. I'm just saying that if you were able to procure another wing that could shoot like Bellinelli, you wouldn't be as tied to CJ Miles when he's having a stretch like this, where, again, you look at these numbers and it's just eye-popping to see how many threes he's missing lately and how little he brings you if he's not hitting threes.
Aaron Best, come on down. You're the next contestant.
We're not doing this, and we're never doing this. All right, let's use the last couple of minutes of the show to gush about one DeLon Wright. Defense forced 13 turnovers.
Hold on, can I call like a 20-second timeout?
Sure.
Didn't you want to gush about DeMar DeRozan's shoes or analyze them?
Fine. Danielle.
No, listen, I don't care, but you made a big deal about it in the lack of a pre-production meeting.
Danielle,
that we had.
throw up the graphic of
And
DeMar
then now you
DeRozan's
wanna go
shoes. This
back
is going to take 2
and
seconds.
beat your DeLon Wright love to death?
Yes, I'm going to talk about DeMar's shoes. DeMar's shoes tonight were the thing I want now the most on the planet. I don't want anything more than DeMar DeRozan's shoes.
Whoa. So there's a Brinks truck full of cash in room 1.
I'll use the money to buy the
Banks
shoes.
in room 2.
Tyra Banks is like 150 years old now.
And
Saying.
And
way to date yourself with that. Tyra Banks, you haven't updated the portfolio since Tyra Banks?
Listen, Tyra Banks is a beautiful woman.
It's like me, Cindy Crawford. It's like, no.
Shout out to Heidi Klum. And DeMar DeRozan's Kobe player exclusives, and that's the thing that you want.
I love them. I think they're the most beautiful shoe
You're so short-sighted.
I've ever seen. They're gorgeous. I want those shoes.
They're red.
Yeah, they're the hottest red I've ever seen. It's like a race car on his shoes. There's no way that DeMar DeRozan is not faster wearing those shoes. Would you agree with that?
No.
That there's no way that those shoes don't make you faster.
I think it's scientifically proven that the color of a shoe does not impact
those are
performance.
race cars for your feet. He's definitely faster. If DeMar DeRozan was going to do his 40 time in those shoes and then just in regular, like not those shoes.
Those are not even the best shoes that came out
I
week.
bet my life.
Did you see the Lance Stevenson Fortnite shoes?
No, I saw the LeBron James Ken Griffey shoes though, and
Yeah, those are
you better
also
believe that when those go for sale again, that's one that Daddy's gonna back the money up to. Like
Notice that we haven't named any brands because this podcast is not getting sponsored.
There are no brands. You can sponsor it though if you're listening to the show, you're watching the show. You feel free to get on that train to start throwing some money around. All right, gushing about DeLon Wright time. Where I started was at the end of the first quarter. Raptors missed everything. It was their lowest scoring quarter of the season. They were 2-11 from 3. They had 4 assists. And the Celtics weren't really making shots either. They didn't bury the Raptors behind anything. But you were waiting for a spark. There was a little bit of that, oh no. Oh, no. Please don't let this be a thing. Not tonight. Not like this. Not at home against this depleted Celtics team. Because I think that a problem with the fan base psyche, and I think even to the team psyche, is that things can go wrong down the stretch and they can compound themselves. And lo and behold, here comes DeLon Wright. Forces Jason Tatum to pick up his dribble and give it out to Marcus Morris for a contested 3 that misses late in the shot clock. Grabs a turnover. Throws it out in transition, alters a shot, finishes the quarter, plus 16. Again, this is a guy who played 1 quarter of basketball. Plus 16, 4 assists, 6 rebounds, 6 points, defended multiple positions, all kind of different bigs, all kind of different smalls, and did it super effectively. And the Celtics finished by shooting 32%, and they had 13 turnovers. That turned into 24 points for the Raptors. It completely tilted the game. He was the MVP for the Raptors tonight. And again, it goes back to this thing of who are your guys? It's impossible to name them because every once in a while, DeLon Wright has a performance like this. And you say, how the hell can DeLon Wright not be out there? DeLon is, to me, still, even with Pascal Siakam, the team's best defensive player. He really is. Because 1 through 3, I don't think that there's a better guy for most matchups than DeLon Wright on this basketball team.
And I think he is a great example in the difference between these two teams. The last time the Celtics came into the ACC, got dealt with, the Raptors bench, 59 points. Tonight, the Raptors bench, 44 points. The Celtics struggle to score at the best of times. when you start going down their roster, they got a lot of length.
Mm-hmm.
They got a lot of guys who can defend. They don't have a lot of guys who can put the ball in the basket, which is why it's a small miracle that they've been able to win at all without Kyrie Irving, and why I think you're going to be facing a Celtics team that is in the playoffs going to play 7. It's at times we'll have to go 6.5 because they can't keep up with the Raptors offensively. Eventually, it's a game of attrition where the Raptors continue to get buckets and go on a 23 run, and the Celtics can't keep up. I think we saw that tonight, and I think DeLon Wright was the catalyst.
Big bounce back win for the Raptors tonight. Again, they beat the Boston Celtics. They basically lock up the Eastern Conference, that 1 seed, 96-78. We're back on Friday. This is a real grind of a stretch for the Raptors, though. They got a game on Friday, they got a game on Sunday, they got a game on Monday, and then a game on Wednesday. They are in it right now. We'll be back then Friday as soon as the game is over. Thanks to everybody for watching. We always appreciate it. Use the hashtag SNRaps and follow Donnovan and I, but we really appreciate everyone that's been tuning in these shows. It's grown every show, and we appreciate that. So we'll catch you Friday. This is Raptors Postgame on Sportsnet.ca.